before you, O Lord, in the midst of our sufferings as a nation. The great destruction of our Mother Earth, the strong earthquakes, typhoons, and floods in the different parts of our country. Also, the massive corruption, time of lies, where truth and justice are suppressed. All of these intensify the poverty of the different sectors of our society. As we come together for this forum, for a prayerful, critical conversations and discernment on these realities, which are also the signs of our time, send us your Holy Spirit to enlighten our hearts and minds. Listen to your voice, and as your disciples, may we be united and work for the common good of our nation. Grant us the strength, the courage, that we may stand for the truth and your gospel values. We also pray for genuine conversion, which begins in our hearts, in the hearts of our leaders, in the government and in the church, and in the hearts of all Filipinos. As a synodal church, grant that our tears of lamentation be turned into powerful passion for justice. Renew our commitment for moral integrity and responsibility, and that our leaders may be truly be servants of your people. May our faith and your living words accompany and sustain us in our ongoing struggle for truth, justice, and peace, concretely experienced in the day-to-day lives of our poor people. May we always remain hopeful in spite of this situation. Grant this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And we also invoke the maternal care of our Blessed Virgin Mary, the Lady of the Most Holy Rosary. We can take our seat and we continue our prayer as we listen and join the song, Sa Dulang ng Ama.
Mga early word, paumanhin po, no? Kung hindi po na related yung change of time.
So to welcome us dito sa Obispado ng Cubao, kasama rin po natin ang Vicar General ng Diocese ng Cubao. So para tayo ay welcome, tinatawagan natin si Father Jojo Simon.
Sa inyo lahat, and on behalf of His Excellency, Most Reverend Elias Layubat Jr., I wish to welcome all of you sa Diocese of Cubao. Humingi din kami ng paumanhin sa mga nagkaroon po ng confusion. Yung nagpunta kanina umaga, si Father Robert na po mag-explain kung bakit. We're very happy and we're very honored to host this event para sa atin po. Alam natin, pagod na tayong matakot, pagod na tayong ninanakawan, pagod na tayong nangangapa sa dilim. So today we stand to be the voice of the church. So maraming salamat for coming. And again, on behalf of the Bishop, I welcome you all to the Diocese of Cubao.
Maraming salamat po, Father Jojo.
Thank you, Father Jojo. Yes.
What's next?
So sister, hindi natin matatagalin, ano?
Yes.
Nandito tayo para magnilay, mag-isip. Noong September 21, napakarami natin.
Sino po ba yung mga naging parte ng September 21?
Taas po yung kamay, yan. Yung mga naulanan.
Maraming salamat.
Oo, yung mga hindi nakapasok sa People Power Monument dahil ang dami-daming tao.
Sobrang dami talaga. Kaya talagang napuno, no? Overflowing. Yes.
Pero ang tanong, nasaan ba tayo noon? Ibig ko sabihin,
nasaan na po ba?
Oo. Alam ba natin kung anong pinaglalaban?
Parating sa lahat ng taong bayan, hindi lamang yung mga mga Katoliko, no? Pero sa buong Pilipinas. Saan nga
During
ba?
that day, ay present ang CMSP sa lahat ng tawag doon, kitaan at lahat ng marcha. Mula sa Manila Cathedral, sa Luneta, sa Maykal, Pedro ba yun? Caltex, Oo, hanggang EDSA, at hanggang hapon.
Yes, Father.
So para tuluyan natin maunawaan at pagnilayan yung mga nangyari at itong mga protesta ng Biyernes, ay meron tayong mga inanayahan.
Mapalad po tayo sapagkat pinamulakan nila ang ating paanyaya sa hapong ito para maging parte po ng ating forum ika.
Siyempre, hindi lang September 21, kundi yung nangyayari sa gobyerno ngayon.
Yes.
Nangyayari sa Kongreso, nangyayari sa Senado, yung nangyayari pagtatakipan ng ating mga liderato, at yung maraming katanungan ng mga karaniwang Pilipino na hindi natin kaya sagutin, pero kaya natin makiisa at sumama sa kanila.
Tama yan, Father. So ito yung pagkakataon talaga, tamang pagkakataon para sa ating lahat.
So yung una po nating bisita ay matagal na pong kakampi ng CMSP. At doon pong siya ay kasalukuyang nasa piitan, ay sabi ko nga kanina mo, nagsusulatan lang tayo dati. Pinagdarasal lang namin kayo dati. Pero hindi po doon natuldukan yung ating samahan, kundi patuloy natin siyang sinamahan kahit ngayon na siya ay nasa Kongreso. So huwag na po natin patagalin pa. Tinatawagan po natin ang una nating panelist, ang Congresswoman Representative ng Mamamayang Liberal.
Ating pong salubungin na isang masigabong palakpakan, si Honorable Leila.
Dito po ako sa podium. Gamitin ko po. Okay. So, kailan mo ako ba kayo tumawag sa akin, Father Robert? 2 days ago. 2 to 3 days ago. Opo. So, tinanong ko po siya, Father, ano ba yung magiging topic ko? Basta it's national situation, bahala ka na. Kung anong magiging topic mo. So honestly, I don't even know where to start. Napakadami ko ng mga issues ngayon. Alam niyo naman po yan. Nandiyan yung ICC, ICI, nandiyan yung budget, nandiyan yung Vizcaya Couple, flood control, and other infra, corruption na scandal. Nandiyan yung budget, katatapos lang po yung budget season, budget deliberations na umaabot kami hanggang alas 2, alas 3 na umaga. Nandiyan yung newly appointed ombudsman, yung kanyang mga magaganda naman ng mga new policies na like the SALN. At rin po yung still hanging, still, the archived impeachment of VP Sara Duterte, which still needs closure. So, ilan lang po yan sa mga topics. So, when I woke up this morning, and as I tried to gather my thoughts, I wrote down what I see, I consider as a political context of all this. And of course, later, sinabi naman po sa akin ni Father Robert na magkakaroon ng Q&A, open forum, and marami tayo siguro pagtatalakay. And I was also comparing kanina with sila Father Flavi, and I know kung ano po yung mga magiging topics nila. That's why I prefer that I take up and I discuss an overview of the political situation, a context, especially in light of what we hear now as talks about possible destabilization. Alam niyo po, the Marcos Duterte fight dominates the Philippine political landscape. And the character of this fight is existential. It's there. We all see that. And lumalala po yung away nila. It is actually a fight to the death for both dynasties, currently the two most powerful political dynasties. And the consequence of this fight is that it draws the rest of the Philippine political spectrum as participants, rather than a mere spectator. Whether we like it or not, we have to participate in that fight. The marginal position among the opposition that they should just remain in the sidelines and watch as the two dynasties destroy each other is not a realistic political strategy. The opposition does not have to take sides, but it should not be indifferent to the ongoing contest, because this contest will determine the dominant political power in 2028. The fight became irreversible when BBM enforced the ICC arrest warrant on Duterte. Parang no turning back na po yun para dun sa mga Duterte forces. For the Duterte family, that was the final declaration of war. Even if earlier, as we all saw, Sara already threatened on live TV to have the first couple assassinated. BBM attempted to de-escalate by not supporting an impeached Sara's trial at the Senate. Good afternoon, Kiko. This was to have no effect on the Duterte camp. The Duterte camp's objective remains BBM's ouster, even before 2022. Halata naman po yan. This objective brings us down to the current state of destabilization of the BBM administration. We see all the signs, we see all the moves, and wittingly, this was brought about by BBM's own SONA on corruption in flood control projects. We all heard, we all saw his SONA towards the end, lalo na. The flood control scam was a product of the 2025 congressional BICAM insertions led by then Senate President Escudero and Congressman Saldico. The destabilization forces, undoubtedly led by Sara, aim to utilize the massive public outcry against the flood control scams to precipitate BBM's austere and her succession to the highest office. And since the BBM iupo yung constitutional successor, and that is Bibi Sara. It can be said that his predicament, or this predicament of BBM, was even made possible by his failure to go all out on Sara's trial in the Senate, allowing Duterte senators to gain the upper hand in stalling the trial and eventually killing it. Especially now, with the nation's attention fixed on the flood control scam issue, it is doubtful that any impeachment action against Sara will still be possible. I think it's not dead, the impeachment, at least up to February of next year. We're not hoping anymore that the motions for reconsideration filed in the Supreme Court, there are a total of 4, apat po, hindi yung mga United I don't think that motions for reconsideration will be granted by the Supreme Court. Wala pa ang kabali-balita tungkol doon. Wala pa nga, not even any notice to hold an oral arguments on that. On the other hand, there is also no indication that the threat of impeachment on BBM is plausible as of now. I think you've heard about, the threat, the plan of Congressman Kiko Barsaga to file an impeachment complaint against BBM. The House more or less remains to be pro-administration. Well, this thing about Kiko Barsaga is another topic. Kulang pang oras natin ngayon. Hindi po ang pag-uusapan natin. Marami rin kwento tungkol sa kanila. But I would say that the House more or less, majority at least, remains to be pro-administration. As of the moment. The same is not true for the Senate. When it appeared that the Blue Ribbon Committee Chair, Senator Lacson, was intent on involving senators in the flood control scam investigation, a majority of the Senate came out with a non-consequential resolution calling for Duterte's house arrest. na nakasama pa nga sa ICC. Kasi bigla na yung tuloy nag-issue ng resolution o ng decision ng ICC Pre-Trial Chamber denying the interim release of Duterte. Duterte's well-being is really not the intent of the Senate resolution. I don't believe that. The resolution was actually meant to telegraph to Senate President Soto, to Senator Lacson, and the BBM administration that they have the numbers to oust SP Soto and revert to a Duterte-dominated Senate majority. Again, this was lost on Senator Lacson, who actually voted for the resolution. This is now why we do not expect an honest Senate inquiry on the flood control scam. Lalo nang wala na dyan si Senator Lacson. And you know, I was hoping that the one that will be replacing Senator Lacson as the chair of the Senate Blue Ribbon would be either Senator Risa or Senator Kiko. But now the acting Senate Blue Ribbon chair is Tulfo. Edwin Tulfo. Now, no comment na lang muna po ako. Tungkol dyan. The BBM administration also does not have the numbers in the Supreme Court. Again, we witness how the Supreme Court is also largely a political actor, where it declared Sara's impeachment unconstitutional, hence null and void. Objectively, the decision is one of the worst recent decision of the Supreme Court. All political decisions of the SC are bad decisions, actually. That is why there are always dissenting opinions to them. But the Sara impeachment decision did not have any dissenting opinion. That's how bad it is. But it went against all previous SC decisions on impeachment and destroyed the spirit of the Constitution on the accountability of impeachable officials. So it feels very sad that it's Senior Associate Justice Mark Ilono who happens to be the ponente of that decision. Because of this pro-Sara decision, I tend to believe as a political observer that the SC remains to be a Duterte-dominated court. This is only expected since most of the sitting judges or justices are Duterte appointees. Despite this, the Supreme Court remains a non-political actor in terms of actively choosing a side in the Marcos Duterte fight, if they have any role to play at all at this point. They have already done their part when they struck down Sara's impeachment. As part of the opposition progressive forces, I believe that there is no benefit at all from a regime change at this point. First, any regime change at this point can only come from destabilization and the ouster of BBM. This is not good for the country. I don't know if everybody here will agree with me. This is not good for the country at this point. During political crisis, the Philippines is periodically beset by destabilization. Only Ramos, FDR, among post-EDSA revolution presidents, did not have destab problems. ERA was ousted, GMA was subjected to countless series of attempted coup. Pinoy at a certain level was also threatened, but not seriously. Duterte himself was not spared from efforts, but this did not take off due to his massive popularity from start to finish of his term. This is BBM's problem. He does not have Duterte's Teflon popularity. And BBM's popularity continues to decline after his very own SONA expose on the flood control scam. He has no popularity to protect him from destabilization attempts, even if he was the one who called attention to the issue, now being used, ironically, to oust him from office. The hypocrisy in this contraposition of BBM as the leader of a corrupt government and the Dutertes as the country's saviors from corruption cannot be overstated. The floodgate of public works corruption was opened by Duterte himself. He disguised the massive corruption with his build program. He removed all reform safeguards installed by Pinoy's DPWH Secretary Babe Simpson. Bukaakan masyadong itong sound. He signaled to the DPWH bureaucracy, that under his regime, there is going to be no limit in corruption in public infra projects. That is why we now have the Vizcayas, Salvico, CLPG, yung pamilya ni Sen Bongo, Escuderos Group, who amassed billions in public infra projects under Duterte. This was only continued under BBM and recently exposed due to flagrant bycam insertions and the use of unprogrammed appropriations led by Escudero and Saldico, and of course through extensions, Martin Montes. Thus, DDS forces clamor for the investigation of public infra projects, but only those from 2022 up to present. Ayaw nilang paggalawin yung from 2016 to 2022. Based on recent surveys, the Filipino public is now almost equally divided along three major political tendencies: the Marcoses, the DDS, and the pink-yellow progressive proud. Only one has a clear candidate now for a leadership challenge: the DDS in the person of Sara. At this point, the Marcos forces actually have no successor to BBM if elections were held today. This reality in turn also largely fuels DDS-led discount efforts. The problem of the DDS movement is that its mass base is primarily located in Mindanao, where the Dutertes maintain a 70 to 80% support. This explains the miserable mobilizations of pro-Duterte forces outside of the Davao Bailiwick. A successful DDS challenge in the streets of Metro Manila heavily relies on an Iglesia ni Cristo mobilization in support of BBM's ouster. This will be a game changer, but it is unpredictable. It also costs a lot in terms of political capital, even for the INC leadership, and thus heavily relies on the necessity of protecting and securing INC interests. INC political mobilizations are generally called to counter perceived existential threats, like the October 2015 Show Boulevard rally when their leadership was summoned to answer kidnapping complaints before the DOJ. That is why the January 2025, supposedly per estimates, I don't know how reliable the estimates were, 1.5 million daw po yun, Iglesia rally versus Sara's impeachment, was, we can say, unprecedented. And the DDS are banking on a repeat of this non-existential show of political force from the INC. Maybe in the next days, next month maybe, the public is disgusted with the more than 100 billion peso DPWH scam. No question about it. Good afternoon, Reverend Bishop. Good afternoon, Paul. But whether the oust Marcos fall of the DDS will snowball is not likely. Outside the DDS movement, Sara is viewed as a worse option because of concerns, if I may say it bluntly, on her mental health and on her own corruption. The DDS should know that her incapacity to achieve their incapacity to achieve a critical mass outside of an INC mobilization is due to Sara herself. Still, their distant efforts will continue because of the existential nature of the fight, especially if additional ICC warrants are issued for other Duterte lieutenants like Senator Bato and even, who knows, Senator Bongo. The flood project scam is shocking, not because it happened, but because of the magnitude of the public funds involved, hundreds of billions of pesos. In the past, this kind of corruption was regulated or controlled by an informal agreement of maximum percentages that went to everybody involved. DPWH officials, contractors, legislators, the corruption in our infrastructure projects has always been a feature of our governance in society because of the rent-seeking nature that political power and government office has assumed. Rent-seeking simply means that government office is considered personal property that public officials can use to serve their own interests, mainly economic interests. The choice positions for rent-seeking in the executive, of course, are those in the DPWH, Bureau of Customs, and the BIR. The PNP benefits from protection rackets in illegal activities such as wetting, human trafficking, prostitution, and illegal drugs. Outside of government, our society is controlled and corrupted by wetting and other forms of gambling, the illegal drug trade, and other forms of organized crime. More often than not, these illegal activities enable the criminals themselves to finance election campaigns of their politician allies, if they are not the candidates themselves. What we end up having through decades of costly election campaigning that only criminal syndicates can afford, and not even legitimate businessmen can afford, are political dynasties founded on criminal enterprises or criminal empires in control of some of our provinces. The Dutertes are one such family, incorporating in their criminal businesses the Davao Death Squad to protect their economic interests in Davao City and environs. The cost of the 100 billion peso corruption in flood control projects is rent-seeking in government, and the cost of rent-seeking is the accumulation of economic wealth to maintain political power, and vice versa. Wealth accumulation through government contracting is simply an alternative of politicians to profitable criminal enterprises such as gambling and illegal drugs. The last but not least class of rent-seeking is regulatory capture. This is where legitimate businesses, industries, and commercial enterprises compete for government favor in the granting of franchises, licenses, concessions, and permits. The Philippines' biggest business empires, as led by the so-called tycoons, owe their success to regulatory capture in varying degrees. This is achieved through crony capitalism, perfected during the Marcos Sr. regime and practiced even up to the present. Regulatory capture is also the primary source of corruption, even in the judiciary. It is in the courts where large business conflicts are decided after failing to be settled at the level of the executive agencies. This is where the old boys and old girls law school network of classmates and fraternity brothers employed by private corporations lobby and find common ground with their judges and justices friends. That is a sad reality. This is the larger context of the Marcos Duterte fight we find ourselves in. It is the product of a rent-seeking political system tied up to legal and illegal businesses. What we are seeing now in the flood control scam was the potential for unprecedented corruption that was unleashed under the Duterte administration. No holds barred, and sky is the limit. Build, build, build. But what was built were private bank accounts instead of infrastructure projects. I absolutely knew that whoever took over as president after Duterte will have an absolutely politically corrupted and morally bankrupted government to deal with. This is what BBM has inherited and is dealing with now with great difficulty. No thanks to his own allies who continue to tempt this rapacious culture of corruption. Kasalanan din niya his weak governance. In the short term, the energy of the fight against corruption must naturally focus on just one small aspect of the sickness in the rent-seeking political system, the flood control scam. But even in just this one small aspect, a lot of details on our elected politicians' links to contractors and their business interests is already being exposed. For the most part, our elected officials are in fact business partners with the contractors, if they are not the contractors themselves. Maski nga sa party list ng mga contractors. This is why I believe the new Ombudsman, Remulla, that the Discayas are protecting a lot of powerful politicians. Marami pa silang hindi sinasabi. Only the gullible will believe that an unknown and unremarkable couple amassed so much government contracting wealth in such a short period of time through sheer business acumen and without the help of political sponsorships. In the meantime, the distaff efforts of the DDS forces will continue under the guise of anti-corruption in the hope of achieving critical mass through an INC mobilization. Huwag naman po sana magpaloko ang ating mga kababayan. Marami pa po akong gustong sabihin. Pero marami pa po mga speakers ngayon. And I might be duplicating the subject matters that they will be covering. So I would rather that I participate later in that question and answer portion in our exchanges of discourses. So I'll be listening to the other speakers and also to the questions later. Maraming salamat po for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ma'am.
We will request people to stay there. Then we will request all our speakers to be here. So we call it Father Flappy,
Mr.
Kiko,
Kiko D.
and Bishop Eddie. As a consecrated person, sa lahat ng initiative niya, lalong-lalo na sa mga homeless and street dwellers.
Familiar ba kayo doon, mga kapatid ko?
At syempre, yung fight against extradition.
Yes.
So, huwag na natin patagalin pa, sister.
Okay, pinapakilala po namin sa inyo si Father Flavi Villanueva, SVP.
Thank you. Salamat po. Magandang hapon po. Dear Bishop Elias, salamat po. Magandang hapon. The thing that I prepared is not as elaborative as Kong Laila, but mostly updates coming directly from a source in the ICC. Trying, and secondly, we'll try to see perhaps ano ba ito nangyayari na to sa ating kasalukuyang kalagayan ng bayan. Yung salitang multo ay maaaring gawing salitang aswang. Tama? Okay. Huwag nyo titignan ang katabi nyo. Wala akong sinabi, tignan nyo katabi nyo. Yung salitang aswang ay madaming uri. Di ba? Merong manananggal, merong tiyanak, ano pa? Merong tigbala, Ha?
Vampira.
Huwag niyo ulit tignan ang katabi niyo. Baka 3, 4, at iba't ibang mga halimaw. Sa Ingles, isa ang tawag natin dito sa kasalukuyan, Ghost Projects. Diba? Iba't ibang pangalan, pero iisa ang pinakulan. Kasamaan, kalupitan, at diretsuhin na natin, kademonyohan. Okay? Kademonyohan. Nung pinagtitilayan ko kung ang SBD-JPIC kasama sa pumumuno ng Arnold Janssen Kalinga Foundation ay makikilaho sa usaping flood control. Ito'y pinagnilayan at pinagdasalan ko muna sapagkat hindi ko ugali yung sumausaw sa isang bagay na basta sasausaw lang. Dapat may pinagmumulan, dapat may pinag-uugatan at buo, organic, hindi lang basta nais ko. At sa aking pagninilay, napagtanto ko na sino ang unang naaapektuhan kapag lumakas ang ulan at tumaas ang tubig. Ang mga homeless, ang mga kapatid natin na nasa laylayan na nakatira sa informal setting o settlers community. At ito mismo ang mga tao, kapatid, na ipinagkatiwala ko sa mga o sa amin sa Arnold Janssen Kalinga Foundation na kung saan nagpapakain kami ng 300 to 350 every day sa Metro Manila. Kalahati po siguro 1/4 galing sa Cubao. Kaya baka pwede makapagsimula na rin po kagalang-galang Bishop ng Kalinga Center sa Cubao. Ang Archdiocese of Manila simula daw a week after na lumabas yung RMA. We too will start a ministry for street dwellers. Sabi ng mga kaibigan mo, pare, bakit hindi na lang replicate yung kay Plapiano? It's been ongoing for 10 years. Anyway, my point to all this is that we need not create a new approach, a new strategy, but at least bear in mind that we have common enemies. At ito ay aswang. And if you ask me, I'm sorry for my bias, but prior to Duterte coming, meron pang kalikasang malinis. Pinagpapahalaga pa yung salitang dangal. At yung katotohanan, pag sinabi kong totoo ito, pwede mong ipaya ang buhay mo sa katotohanan yon. Pero after Duterte, the truth has always been a question. Yung kalinisan ng puso ay nababasag at binasag. Yung disente ay bihira mo nang makita. At higit sa lahat, ang buhay binaboy. Thus, I personally vow that we cannot have another Duterte in this country ever. So my communication with the ICC has been constant and regular. Today, we just received they just came home. Nakapapadala tayo ng mga bagong, the first team of witnesses came home from The Hague some weeks ago. They were supposed to be our representatives doon sa tinatawag na confirmation of charges. which was unfortunately postponed again because sa kanilang mga panlilinlang at paggawa-gawa ng kwento. Now, someone from the ICC came recently and he met and is recognized as the quote-unquote conduit of our country with the ICC. When he arrived, he called for a closed-door meeting, and let me share at least 4 of his findings. First, ang bahay ng dating Presidenteng Verdugo ay mistulang hotel. 3-star hotel at least. May kasama siyang 5 co-accused at inaantay ang verdict. But the place is more than decent. It is beautiful. Second is that wala siyang sakit. Nung sinabi sa akin yun, I beg to disagree. May sakit yan sa ulo. But sabi niya, Father, that is not my point. He is physically well, though a bit depressed. Sabi ko, ako rin naman, depressed, matagal na, since 19 or 2006. But again, he is physically sound and well. Third, he has a cell phone, an analog cell phone, and a computer that could communicate with his family 24/7. Fifth, another would be, there's a team of doctors ready on a standby to bring him or anyone to a 5-minute hospital away where they are staying. And last but not the least, wala pong nahulog sa sahig. Uulitin ko po, walang nahulog sa sahig gaya ng sinasabi ng bulaang si VP Sara. Pero, nasa sahig naman siya. We continue to stand by and to stand by and await for the warrant of arrest. The second one, earliest probably would be January or Feb, or the latest would be February. God willing, it would come before Christmas. Sabi ko nga, my only wish for Christmas is a warrant. And the thing that was unexpected for us was we were hoping that the third warrant would involve another PNP chief, but it did not reveal to be such. Ang nangyari ay isang kagulat-gulat na sa paghuhukay at pagpapalalim ng investigasyon, lumalabas si Bongo ay malalim at involved sa mga high-value targets na pinapatay noong panahon ni Digong. Si Bato ang in charge sa Oplan Tokhang, pero si Bongo ang in charge sa mga high-value targets. So we hope, most likely, that the third warrant would be for your Senator Bongo. The last but not the least is that the team of investigators are constantly moving from here and there inside the country, looking for corroborative witnesses. They continue to corroborate the testimonies of our witnesses. Thus, if you have any na hindi pa ho nado-document, we would welcome these narratives, which of course would be The program ng Ilum has never ceased to provide the psycho-spiritual intervention since 2016. We will commence, or we will do our batch 22 come January. So if you have any victims under your care, we would welcome them, regardless of where they are. We will provide the necessary transportation allowance. Isa pang maaaring tabayanan ay ang paglulunsad po ng isang EGK Truth Commission, which hopefully would happen anytime before the end of the year. Kasabay po nito ang isang EGK Mobile Museum. Ito po lang ang aking munting babahagi at maraming po salamat sa inyong suporta at sa nagpa-picture kay mamaya, pakiusap lang daw, huwag niyong sabihin cheese. Keso, pwede. Ang sabi ng ating buting Cardinal Chito Padre, walang cheese kasi hindi siya nakakatawa. Magandang hapon, President.
Thank you, Father Rafi.
Maraming salamat po, Father Rafi. Matandaan na, wala daw ng cheese.
Hindi na rin sabi ng same cheese.
Wala ng cheese.
Yes, painit yung ating talakayan. Marami tayong mga nakukuha na hindi lang update. Yung iba talagang alam na natin pero kailangan ng paglilinaw.
Yes.
So, importante na kahit na yung EJK ay ilang taon na nakakalipas, marami pa rin apektado. Kahit ang CMSP, isa sa talagang nagtaguyod para panagutin si Duterte. At marami sa atin nakaranas din ng mga death threats at kung ano-ano pang injustices.
Yes.
Ipagpatuloy din natin yung talakayan, Sister.
Yes, Father. Dahil in spite of our weather, pero ating talakayan na ay napakainit. Sino po ba ang susunod natin?
Siyempre, yung kasunod nating speaker, isa sa mga talagang kabataang tumitindig ngayon. At alam naman natin, kahit wala yung apelido niya sa kanyang prinsipyo, at sa mga pananalita na kanyang binibitawan sa media, makikita natin kung paano siya tumitindig. So, isa po sa mga leader ng tindig at leader din na nagtaguyod noong September 21. So, tawagin natin.
Okay, mga kapatid, natawagan po natin si Mr. Kiko D.
Good afternoon po sa ating lahat. Pasensya na medyo nakulit po tayo kanina. Came from another meeting of about similar things actually. Pero siguro po, ang pag-uusapan ko na lang po ngayon ay kita naman po natin na in the lead up to September 21 and especially after, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po yung mga kilos protesta dito sa issue ng corruption with regards to flood control, and I think what we're seeing developing now is it's going beyond the issue of flood control na rin. We're seeing yung expose sa lower house dun sa mga ghost hospitals. There were statements about yung corruption in classrooms. So I think yung madalas nating kinatatakutan when we see social movements emerge na uupa lang yan after the big rally, it'll die down. At the very least, we're not seeing that happen now. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung protests. So I think the first thing I want to discuss now is what is the end game for all of this? What do we want to achieve? And I think we've seen in our history there are basically two models as far as corruption is concerned. The first is the Exodus model, which had involved a withdrawal of support from President Estrada, si President Arroyo replaced. And the second is, I think, the electoral model, which I'll admit medyo biased ko yan kasi that's how si Pinoy get elected after the corruption of GMA. So I think today we're faced with a similar crossroads. On the one hand, what we see is we're seeing so many of our institutions fail to perform as intended. Yung nakita natin in the hearings on corruption in the lower house, may ilan nabanggit, but it was quickly, it ended very quickly. Sa Senate, mas may drama ng konti. Parang si Senator Lacson brought all of these things out, and then he was ousted as the head of the Blue Ribbon Committee. And while we saw names emerge in these hearings, Hindi natin alam kung alin dyan yung totoo, talagang sangkot malamang meron. Pero hindi rin natin alam kung sino dyan yung mga nasama lang dahil sa politika. And so we needed something to sort the wheat from the chaff. And I think the hope of many from civil society, from the church as well, was yun yung dapat magiging papel ng ICI. We needed an independent commission to figure out, to sort the wheat from the chaff, to tell sino ba talaga yung sample, who should we be angry at, who should we file cases against, and who should we ultimately kick out of office come the next election. Pero while the ICI has done a few notable things, we note yung yung request to include several names dun sa immigration lookout bulletin. That's a small positive step. But I'm quite concerned na more broadly, the public pronouncements of the ICI has been to shy away from transparency. Parang you saw a very stubborn refusal to open the ICI hearings to the public, which I think honestly, I think it defeats the purpose of the ICI kung walang ganyang aspekto kasi the public needs this credible entity to tell us kung sino ano ba talaga yung nangyayari sa politika, devoid of the Marcos Duterte rift. And so the ICI choosing to be, the ICI choosing not to be public in this nature, I think is very problematic. The second aspect is, I think recently, nakita lang natin yung matagal na warning ni na Kong Laila, Kong Chel Diokno na walang imin yung ICI, no? Since with the Discaya saying that they're no longer going to be participating in the ICI. This is why I think we needed legislation to give the ICI contempt powers para mapilitan po yung mga sangkot sa mga issue na ito to give their information, no? And to participate in the hearings. So I think it's troubling na we're seeing all of these different institutions fail to perform. Again, yung sa ombudsman din, it's a bit of a mixed bag. No? Mukhang positive step yung gagawing accessible ulit yung mga sabihin ng mga politiko natin. That's a good step forward. Or not step forward, pero a step back to where we were before. Kasi nilintad yun ni Ombudsman Martinez. I think it's also positive that si Ombudsman Remulla mentioned na yung sinabi niya, I think it was 67 solid cases against congressmen, of which 12 to 15 can be filed very soon. So we're anticipating that move. But it's also concerning that we can't forget naman the background then of Ombudsman Remulla. He was very much aligned with the Marcoses. Ako, it's still very fresh in my mind yung imagery ng 2022 na nagbibigay siya ng pera dun sa mga botante niya dahil hindi pa campaign period para sa mga local officials. So we don't have illusions naman about the kind of character Ombudsman Remulla is. So that's something, it's also concerning. There's also some concern there, although may positive steps. So on the one hand, I can see how for an external observer or an objective observer, all of these institutions of government, isa-isang pumapalya. Yung executive, they set up the ICI, but it's not performing up to standard. Congress has been overly politicized. The Ombudsman, some improvement, pero nagiging politicized din. I can see why there are people calling for something more radical. And we've heard discussions of this earlier on. Noong September 21, I think AFP Chief of Staff Bronner essentially confirmed, he didn't say naman outright confirmed, but he essentially mentioned that September 21 was a turning point for the armed forces. There seems to have been a credible threat of coup d'etat at that time. And I think now, those of us who are organizing the next round of the Trillion Peso March, which is scheduled for November 30, we're starting to hear similar rumors na bagit ni Kong Laila yung sa INC. We're hearing still need for verification, but we're hearing talk that they also plan to mobilize around that time. So it's something we're very cautious of. About. But a lot of these moves, I think, are in the direction of something extra-constitutional. Either it's to put Sara in office, which we've discussed earlier, talagang for very, very many reasons problematic yan. For the sake of human rights, continued corruption, for the sake of in terms of our advocacy against China for our sovereignty, very problematic if Sara Duterte assumes office. But I would actually argue even more problematic is if we do something extra-constitutional and it's not Sara who is there. Parang, ano yung itsura doon, diba? Parang is it going to be like a hulta and then we end up like Thailand na every time the military doesn't like what happens, they step in and reverse whatever we do. So I think, while I can understand the gravity of the situation right now, and I can understand a lot of the disappointment with the deserved disappointment in the Marcos administration, their handling of this issue and many other issues. I think at least as far as the coalitions I represent are concerned, yung Tinig Pilipinas, Siglap, and many of the groups that we talk with, even sa Trillion Peso March, we're all on the same page naman na we're not advocating anything extra-constitutional. That's not the direction we want to take things. It opens up too big of a can of worms, it opens up too much chaos. But if we're not going in that direction, then I think what has to happen for the movement to go forward is we need to advocate ano yung magagawa natin in the lead up to 2028 within the bounds of the Constitution. And we've been having meetings to that effect called ano yung pwedeng i-demand. But just to share some of the sort of key milestones that I think we want to see and push for as far as the government is concerned over the next few weeks, next few months. No? I think it's very critical for the INC to reverse its decision to hold closed-door meetings. No? Kasi nga, precisely because people don't see the progress as far as these investigations are concerned. Kaya nagkakaroon ng rumors in innuendo about the ICC. No? Parang si Martin Romualdez says this, and then there's a rumor na he'll become a state witness na hindi talaga katanggap-tanggap and all of that. But I think a lot of these questions will be solved. The ICC, in fact, will have an easier time sort of communicating with the public and performing with their function if they open up their hearings. So I think that's something that I hope all of the movements against corruption start incorporating to their cause. Hindi talaga pwede na closed door yung hearings ng ICC. Siguro, pangalawa din po, I think we need to hold on to the pronouncements or we need to hold Ombudsman Remulla's feet to the fire as far as his pronouncements are concerned on cases being filed. Yun. So kung meron talagang 12 to 15 cases for congressmen na low-hanging fruit, hopefully we see that in the next few weeks na may ma-file na agad-agad. And I think as far as when the ICI concludes its investigations, what I hope to see is na the ICI sa dami ng mga politiko involved, I hope the ICI prioritizes those people who occupy high positions. So not just any congressman, not just any senator, but Senate President, Speaker of the House, and the heads of the different appropriations committees. So sinasabi ko, the senators involved there. Sana sila yung ma-prioritize because we want to see that message na kahit sino kang tao, we're all equal under the law. At kung meron kang maling ginawa, kahit na Senate President or Speaker of the House, mananagot ka. So we want to see the Ombudsman, we want to see the ICI rather transmit that information to the Ombudsman, and we want to see the Ombudsman file as soon as possible. And I think all of the rallies naman from different political blocks, yung panawagan na yung gulong na yung mga parako. So I think that is the very concrete things that we need to see. So if that's in the short term, in the medium term, I think there's a clear agenda for reform. I think that exists at various levels in Congress. So definitely, I think yung nabanggit ko na po yung Independent Commission on Infrastructure, which are Hong Dalia is one of the proponents of that. And I think again, we see the necessity of that bill. Now, one, we need an infrastructure commission with teeth that has the power to hold people in contempt and compel people to submit information. And two, we want an infrastructure commission that is truly independent of the executive. Kasi as it stands, pag biglang nagbago yung isip ni President Marcos, which is liable to happen as you've seen throughout the last few years, baka mawala na naman yung ICI. Right? So we want something with legislation that's truly permanent, that can investigate all of these issues. Other critical reforms are including the open bicameral process. So a lot of the insertions that happened that have turned out to be very problematic in the bicameral conference to reconcile the House and Senate versions of the budget. And even deeper than the bicameral conference, yung small committee na 2, 3, or 4 people lang yung we need to submit the final bill. That's where the majority of these problematic insertions occur. And so there have been House and Senate resolutions calling for an open bicameral conference para kita natin lahat kung ano yung magpag-uusapan doon. There have been moves to get rid of this small committee. So I think that these are important reforms for the immediate budget cycle that we also need to call on. So the open that's the open bicameral. And then siguro po the more structural reforms. I think I was just in a meeting earlier po talking about the advocacy for anti-political dynasty. And game changer talaga po yung nangyayari ngayon. Kasi dati, pag pinag-usapan natin yung anti-dynasty, hindi medyo masyado siyang abstract para sa mga putahanin natin, para sa taong bayan. Ito ba yung anti-dynasty? Hindi naman yan problema ko ngayon. Parang, that was the discourse for so long. But with the rise of this flood control scam, and we recall na the inciting incidents for this, bukod sa malalang pagbaha dito sa Maynila and surrounding provinces, andun din yung mga nepo babies na posting different things on social media and really exacerbate or really making stark the inequality that we experience right now. And I think there's yung galit ng taong bayan. I think for those of us who advocate anti-dynasty, it's really a moment to push this bill forward, I think. So whether it's a bill or there are different groups calling for a people's initiative to pass the anti-dynasty law, which would be the first time we pass a law by people's initiative. But I think it's something worth devoting our energies to, especially now na kita ng mga tao yung link between dynasties and corruption because of all of these nepo baby social media posts. And so yun po, there's several laws that we need to push: freedom of information, party list reform to kick out to prevent the contractors from occupying party list seats. We need campaign finance reform, beneficial ownership, etc. Pero yun po, so there's a whole, we're trying to put together a legislative agenda for the next the next 2 years for us that the movement can push forward. But siguro the final element to this book is for our side, for the side of the Democratic opposition, kagaya ng sinabi ni Komday na it's only the Duterte camp that has a clear candidate in 2028, and that's becoming increasingly untenable, I think, at least for our side of politics. If I can just express personally, I had a discussion with Father Angel in the lead up to this. When we were talking about the 3 Million Peso March, ako personally, every interview is very difficult because you start attacking Marcos, which is something I'm very happy to do. But you start attacking Marcos too much kapag binibintangan ka na pro-destabilization. You start attacking Marcos not enough kapag binibintangan ka na pro-Marcos. And I think it's just speaking as myself, it's very difficult for us to offer a credible alternative when there's no face attached to it. Sabihin natin na that's an unfortunate part of Philippine politics, this personality is. But it's increasingly untenable, I think, for the opposition to not have a clear candidate going into 2028. And just to say, and I think to end things on a somewhat optimistic line, I think the time for our side of politics, the side of the Democratic opposition, it's really right now. I don't know if I follow surveys a lot, but there's an interesting one that came out from Pulse Asia a little recently. There were 2. One was by W.R. Numero that said that from people identified as pro-Duterte, from something of a high of 40%, that dropped to something like 28%. And the biggest chunk of our electorate is now undecided. So they're not supportive of the Democratic opposition, but neither are they supportive of Marcos or Duterte. So there's a real space. Number 1. Number 2. And this one I haven't discussed with too many people yet, so medyo hit away yung interpretation. But there was a recent Pulse Asia survey asking about yung top issues of the Philippines. And then I think 54%, number one, is still combating inflation. Pero close behind, number two, 51% is fighting corruption. So there's a real demand to fight corruption. And very interestingly, if you break that down regionally, you have the lowest prioritization for corruption, strangely enough, in Mindanao. And that needs to be unpacked. But my immediate analysis of that is, I don't think the Dutertes, beyond their echo chamber, have been able to claim credibly that they're an anti-corruption force. Parang yung broader population na undecided. I don't think they look at Duterte and think na siya yung magsusolusyon, the Duterte camp, Sara, or whoever it is. Sila yung magsusolusyon dito sa issue of flood control. Definitely, they think that Marcos is responsible. His approval rating is back in the negatives again. We haven't seen that since Gloria Arroyo. But I think on this flood control issue, the public, I think, is looking for someone other than Marcos or Duterte. There is that gap that needs to be filled. And that's largely up to our side of politics to figure out who will step in to face that. But I think it's increasingly urgent that we need to identify our own center of gravity for this issue, so we can rally around them. Kasi otherwise, kaya tayo as Kong Laila mentioned, kaya tayo natatrap dito sa Marcos versus Duterte because we don't have a clear alternative to offer. So I think in terms of our movement is concerned, those are the three things that I'd like to see going forward. Definitely pressure on the ICI and the Ombudsman to file the cases. Definitely essential reforms, anti-dynasty, open BICAM, a permanent commission on infrastructure. But I think a third and very important element, if we don't want anything else extra constitutional, then 2028 is our moment to turn our back on corruption. And sa lalo we need our clear alternative to rally around for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kiko. Palakpakan po natin ulit si Senator Congresswoman Laila de Lima, Father Flavio Villanueva, at Kiko Diapio.
Father Angel.
So hindi na rin natin patatagalin kasi actually busy itong ating susunod na magsasalita, pero pinaunlakan pa rin na tayo. So we will listen to the shepherd's voice.
The Diocese of Cubao.
Of course, ang dating co-chair person ng CMSP, na hindi pa rin tayo pinapabayaan. At siya rin ang bagong chair ng CPCP Commission on Mutual Relations. So, without further ado, Sister Christine.
Yes, brothers and sisters, let us welcome our Most Reverend Elias Ayuban, the Diocese of Cubao.
Feel at home. Pag uwi niyo, pwede dalhin niyo yung mga gamit dito. Actually, I got lost. I went upstairs thinking that the conversation would happen in the third floor. At abutan ko na yung mga upuan, wala nang laman. Nagsiuwian na pala sila. Only to find out that dito pala ang encounter. Maybe while listening to them, I just jotted down some seeds of hope, no? Allow me to share with you ano yung nakikita kong mga signs of hope. I remember the book of Charles Dickens, The Tale of Two Cities, and it begins by saying, this is the best of times and the worst of times. No? Maybe it's self-explanatory, but like the worst of times, but just allow me to highlight some reasons for me, apparently, are signs of hope that would impel me to call this time as the best of times. Una-una, tingin ko this is the best of times dahil nagkalaya na si Laila de Lima. si Father Flavi ay nag-receive ng Magsaysay Award. Parang unthinkable to a couple of years ago. Pero nangyayari. No? Ito yung sinasabi ng amin yung unexpected turn of events na kung ibabase mo sa kasalukuyang pangyayari ay hindi mangyayari. Most of the times, we base our projection on the present situation according to the facts, unmindful that God is also working silently, and He's a God of surprises. Ang Panginoon na nanggugulat sa atin. Pangalawa, kung di man the best of times will be better than the past. Ako'y nagmisa sa Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary of Balaban, the patroness of Quezon City. I was so happy to see na mayroong white ribbon doon sa dibdib ng aking Mahalina. It means that the Dominicans are already very much aware. Sa mga congregations ng mga Dominicans, sa salita na magandang pangitain ng nanay. Pag Franciscan, Christian. Pag Okan, it's already given. Pag Claricians, yes, it's already given. Pero pag Dominicans, malaking portion. And not only that, kahapon, I celebrated the Fiesta Mass of St. Luke's Hospital. In the east of St. Joseph statue, meron din white ribbon. At St. Luke's, nakikialam na, no? At pag nagsasalita tayo tungkol sa massive corruption, hindi pinabasa sa ibahan. So, sang-ayon sila lahat na dapat tayo magsalita dahil bilang mga anak ni Maria, hindi pwede tayo manilin. Yung consciousness ng mga tao ay para sa atin ay napakataas. Sasabihin lang nung nag-misa si Father Robert, dahil sa kanyang magsabi ng chief, tawanan lahat. So makakonect na sila. Nag-misa ako sa Padre Pio, sa may Eastwood. Sabi ko, yung incorrupt body ni Padre Pio, dapat dahil natin sa Pilipinas para mabawasan yung corrupt. Palakpakan sila. Siguro sa family ko lang, yun lang ang tandaan nila. So this is the best of times are better than in the past. Isang magandang bahitaan mga kapatid, the CPCP and the CNSP are on the same page. Alam mo, nakikita niyo? But at CNSP o MRSP in the past, nagmumuna sa marcha that is expected because we are partners. Ang CBCP ay mag-observe na yan at saka pa susunod. But now, with the leadership of Colonel Ambo, minsan namumuna pa. Mag-e-edit yung kanyang term sa January 1 at December 1. Kaya siguro sinasabi nila lahat yung gusto sabihin niya. What I'm trying to point out is we expect the next president to be as engaging as Ferdinand Ambo. And we pray for that. Pero, hindi lang ang president dito ang mayroong crucial role. Kasi lahat, or most of the pronouncements happen in between plenaries. Pag meron kami na-release na letter, or apostolic exhortation, or apostolic letter, yan ay decision ng plenary. Pinag-decide yan either sa month ng January or July. In between time, yan ay decision ng permanent council. Ang good news lang ay member ako ng permanent council. Maraming kami. I expect Archbishop Garza to be as engaging or even more engaging. But still, I believe that Colonel Ambo will still be behind. Kasi sa inyo nag-focus. He prepared ng mga statements. And he's very vocal. Isa pang pagkain, nakikita nakikita ko na maganda ay after the demonetization ng massive corruption, wala na gaano government officials na involved na nag-attend ng misa pag fiesta. Nagiging na. No, sa lalaban, now you imagine the number of people present there. Pero aside from the mayor, kaya yung mga members ng council, wala ka nang magandang congressman. Pumunta ako the other day or yesterday sa Santo Domingo dahil minasulungan. Kita ko lang may nakasuot ng t-shirt ng congressman, pero wala nang congressman doon. Isang pangitain na sila pala ay nangyayari din. Hindi pala as kapal yung bukas may immigration. Tungkol doon sa sinabi ni Father Flavi, Ministers of the Children actually, it has been existing for a long time in the Diocese of Cubao. Hindi lang namin pinapublicize. But there is a group of religious congregations catering to their needs. Napakaganda. Collaborative ministry, yung isang congregation na provide ng bahay, pag may bagyo, pag may inclement weather, doon natutulog, kumakain, nalilito. And they're organized. And other congregations, including the cathedral, help provide food and many other needs. We hope to expand a very demanding ministry, pero a work for doing. I-formalize na natin yung Association of Consecrated Persons in the Diocese of Cubao. Dahil ito yung diocese na may pinakamaraming mga consecrated persons. Very soon, tatawag na ng assembly para mas systematic at mas organized ang ating pagdilas. Yan po ba akong good news? Pakilala ka lang yung ating bagong secretary ng Episcopal Commission on Literary Relations, si Sister Ellen Salipan, Sister. Kanito ba yung Sister? Siguro pinalala siya, yung speaker siya sa the city at parte ni Father Angel. As chairman of the Mutual Relations Commission, sisikapin pong i-promote yung ating ugnayan sa mga obispo, ugnayan ng mga obispo sa inyo. Ilapit ko kayo sa mga obispo kahit ayaw ninyo. Para mas collaborative ang ating ministry, mas organized ang ating pagkilas. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po, Bishop Kelly. Hindi mo nakakalimutan na sila ni-speak. Actually po, nung posisyon ng nanabalik, may nagpadala sa akin ng Viber message si Father Boyd ng OB. Picture ng Our Lady of Nanabal with the Maybon. Sagot ko siya na, wow, Father, pati pala si Father Mary po protest. Sabi niya, ngayon pala, binulong na namin sa mahal na ina. Kaya marami talaga ngayon, hindi lang yung gesture of expression, but we are invited sa mga communities natin, maglagay ng white ribbon sa churches, mga no to corruption, magnakaw, just to express kung paano tayo nakikiisa. So siguro hindi na natin patatagalin pa, para isahan na lang yung Q&A. Isa sa mga good news din at kapiling natin si Sir Jul Lozada. Pagkatapos ng Pangulong, ay kapiling pa rin natin kasama ng series pinakita ko doon. Ayan. So tawagin natin yung dating Franciscan, pero Franciscan pa din. At para bigyan tayo ng linaw at paanyaya kung paano natin pag-iisahin ang clergy, ang religious, ang laiko, ang diocese ng Cubao. Siya po yung bagong JPIC, ano tawag ko? Secretary o Minister ng Diocese of Cubao. Ang kapatid natin na hanggang ngayon ay walang tigil pa rin sa pagtakbo, si Father Robert Ray.
Kaya natutuwa, hindi mo lang ni siya kayuban ng mga magandang balita, pag-asa. Ang pag-asa namin ngayon ay hindi ito isa from the dice of course, sabi yun, tapos kami lahat mga pare nagtatawa na kami. Pero yung tawa ay talaga, okay. Si Bishop, hindi ko alam sasabihin niya. After 1 year, natutuklasan niya na hindi, ang sinasabi niya, hindi the best priest, but the priest that I will always stand for and stand by because they are my priests. Kaya for us, kung panahon ni Bishop Joe, siyempre sabi namin, the best bishop is the Bishop of Cubao. Ngayon, nag-retire na yung best bishop of Cubao, hindi ko naman sasabihin na pumalit better. Pero still the best. And so Cubao is a potential place where many good things can happen. Kaya, alam nyo, nasasabihin ko lang po ay simple. Yung momentum po na sinimulan noong pang January, February, hindi lang naman September 21. Marami po nangyayari kung nakarang mga buwan. We are trying to create momentum. Pero yung momentum na yun, pagkamat sabi ni Kiko, ay nandiyan pa parang. Pero hindi mo nga nasasabi sa akin na parang bumabagal. At isang dahilan ay ang layo pa ng November 30. Ang layo pa namin. Tapos, pwedeng may mga biglang gumawa na hindi natin kasama. Katulad ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Kaya isang tanong niya, how do we really look at the momentum of events now? Are we happy with the momentum? Is it gaining force or is it losing steam? I'm not sure. Kaya pwede pag-usapan. Pangalawa, nagbigay si Kiko ng mga paliwanag niya. Yung pangalawang tanong na napakahalaga, after November 30, saan natin gusto pumunta? At ito po yung mahalagang sinari na kailangan natin tingnan. Marami pong mga grupo na may kanya-kanyang agenda. Dapat po, yan po pag-ingatan natin. Yung nakaraang September 21, marami pong grupo doon na may iba-ibang agenda. At yung mga grupong yan ay nag-uusap pa rin, kasama pa rin, at medyo may dynamics na maski na gusto nyo yan, pero huwag yan. Ito gusto namin eh. Kaya, pag-usapan natin, parang mangyayari ay yung gusto ng lahat. Di ganon. Ano ba yung hindi namin gusto, pero gusto ng iba? Magkagulo, at sunugin ng mga bahay ng mga congressmen, senador, at ng mga kontratista, at yung mangyayari sa atin, nangyayari sa lupa. Mangyayari sa atin, nangyayari sa Indonesia. Gusto ba yun? Mangyayari sa atin, nangyayari, o nangyari na naman sa Madagascar. Okay? 2 years ago, nagkaroon ng coup. Pinalitan yung presidente. Pero yung presidente pinalitan, pinalayas na naman nila dahil nakialam na naman ang military. Yung coup, 2 years ago, military. Yung coup na naman ngayon sa Madagascar, military pa rin. Kaya, yung military component po, mga man nangyayari. Hindi pa nangyayari na nagkaroon ng coup. Tagumpay sila mula sa hindi. During chorus time, 7 times nag-coup. Okay? Pagkatapos na di-Poli, nakialam ng military muli nung pinamagsak si ERA. At kaming mga nakialam noon, nagamit kami ni GMA. Si GMA palagi namin kausap, siya yung akala namin isang veteran early to ERA. Pero bumagsak lang si ERA dahil nag-withdraw ng suporta sila Angelo Reyes. Mahalaga military. Kasi talagang nangyayari ang mga bagay-bagay dito sa atin kung ang military ay kakampi sa tao bayan. Sa what nangyari dahil kumampi ang military, ikalinasin sa iba pang mga komitilos kung hindi sumuport kung si General Beth ay sumunod kay Marcos, kung si General pala nakinig kay Imelda Marcos na si Marcos, yung asawa, Ferdinand, ay hindi kumaya, gusto ni Imelda na marilin na yung mga nasa isa. Kung alam niyo yung history nyo, it was Ferdinand who says, no. Where do not shoot. Dahil doon, nagtuloy-tuloy yung sa revolution na wala ni isang bala ng pinaputo. Tama? Kaya crucial pa rin. At nag-withdraw yung military at siya engineer, umawin, sumama sa taong bayan at that was the end of the Marcos era. Natapos na yung Sierra dahil sa military. Ngayon, pwede rin may mangyari at matapos ang lahat ng ito at ang military ang papasok. Gusto niyo? Gusto niyo ba? Ang problema kasi noon, hindi natin alam kung anong klaseng military papasok. Bakit? Dalawa po ang function sa loob ng military. Marami pa hong kakampi si Duterte sa mga general. Dahil binusok ni Duterte lahat ng sundalo. From the highest to the lowest level. At dahil si BBM ay naging presidente na for the last 3 years, medyo meron na rin siyang mga kakampi sa loob. Kaya, sa loob ng military, may DDF, may Duterte, may BBM. Paano pinapag-uusapan kung magkaroon ng gulo kung sino ang papayagan masulog? Talagay ko, hindi papayag basta-basta ang mga Duterte generals na ang mga BBM generals kung masulog. Ano nangyayari? May potential civil war sila. Kaya ayaw natin yun. Kaya ang problema dito, nasa ng simbahan. Ang simbahan mo ay icing on the cake. Ang simbahan mo ay kailangan ng military dahil hindi sila lalabas kapag hindi maraming tao sa kanila. Kaya noong September 21, sa lapat na lang at merong luneta at merong EDSA. Bakit? Walang EDSA, luneta lang, ang gugulo doon, kung sino man, at sisigaw, sumisigaw na nga ilabas ang mga lighter, sunugin. Anong susunugin? Ang Malacanang. Kung iisang lugar lang, mas madaling gumawa ng gulo at ang lapit-lapit po ng Malacanang sa Luneta. And you could imagine a crowd the size of what was there in Luneta marching towards Malacanang. Something very bad could happen. Kaya ano mangyari sa November 30? Even the choice of November 30, I'm a little worried of the choice. November 30. And for those who may have forgotten, November 30, November 29, 2007. November 29, 2007. Merong naglakad mula Ninoy Aquino statue sa Makati papuntang Manila Pen. Pagkatapos magbisa doon, magbibisa lang, at wala ka lang yung magbibisa, kung ano lang na mangyayari. Sino magbibisa doon? Ako po. Sinabihan ako ni Bishop Tobias, magbisa ka sa Ninoy Aquino. Bakit po? Kasi November 30, kinabukasan, kailangan mainit ng November 29. Para sa November 30, mainit na. Bakit kailangan uminit? So, si Bishop Tobias pa to. Sumunod ako kay Bishop Tobias. Nagpunta ako doon sa Ninoy Aquino, umuulan pa. Ako lang nakatayo doon. Sino magsisimba dito? Nag-Jollibee muna ako. Nandun sa Jollibee, para breakfast. After a while, dumating yung mga tao, at nung meron ng 50 na nandun, pumunta ako. Sabi ko, nasa po yung lamesa. Anong lamesa po? Di ba mag-iwisa ako dito? Anong visa mo? Tapos bigla dumating na hanggang may 200 na doon. May sumigaw, marcha na! Ha? Marcha, papunta sa akin. nakadaming pa rin ako. Father, hinihintay na tayo ng mga sundalo sa Manila Pen. Wala akong kamalay-malay. So nagmarcha ako kasama ng mga tao. Ako naman, nakakatama, nagmarcha ba ako? It's the reverse of the shepherd following the flock. Not the flock following the shepherd. Marcha na! Okay. Basta marcha na. Marcha. Tapos biglang may helicopter na sumusunod sa amin. Sabi ko, bakit may helicopter? Hindi po namin alam. Pagdating namin sa Manila, bakit kaya basag na yung mga bintana, yung mga sundalo? Tinanong ko, nandun ba yung mga obispo? O nandun po yung dalawang obispo, Bishop Tabarian and Bishop Tobias. And Sally Trillanes, Narinim, Magdalo, and Ram. They were going to withdraw support in an attempted coup against Gloria. Ano nangyari? Hindi nahuli ako, lalo ako sa traffic. Na hindi ko alam kung bakit. Mabuti pa si Laila, alam niya kung bakit. Kaya kami ni Laila, she is an alumna in a alumnus of Grabe Custodial Unit. Pero siya kami sumakugaw. Honorable mention kasi she finished several doctorates, almost 7 years. Ako 16 days lang. Anyway, nakita niyo po yung sitwasyon. There's always a military component. So why November 30 yet? Because November 30 is Andres Bonifacio. And Andres Bonifacio is not for a peaceful transition, but for a bloody revolution. So what can happen in November 30? Your guess is as good as mine. But that's why kinausap ko sila mga kaibigan, si Angel. Sabi ko, ang simbahan ko is never for any violent approach to change. Okay? Kaya magandang nakinig tayo sa ating mga speakers. Magandang nandito po yung ating obispo. Kasi napansin nyo, meron pong one UP. Meron pong one TAF. Pero wala pang one QC. Diba? One QC. At wala pang one Cubao. Diba? Bishop one Cubao. Well, could you imagine seeing white ribbons from Welcome to all the way to Katipunan? Just try to use your imagination. And it is possible because there are schools and parishes all along Rodriguez, crossing to the other side onto Aurora, all the way to Katipunan. If we are talking about using white ribbons as a symbol of protest against corruption, hindi naman isa lang naglastos. Kanya-kanyang lagay ng white ribbon. Kaya ba natin from Welcome Rotonda all the way to Katipunan na magtataka yung mga tao patay white ribbon stretch of mga 5 kilometers yata yun. A little more than 5 kilometers. But kung marami magtutulungan. So, this is something that you can think about. Pero sa akin, yung aking point the church is very important in whoever has an agenda to provide the one bodies. The political blocs, the organized groups, do not have enough one bodies. Bishop, this is the danger. The church has the one bodies. The 49 parishes of Cubao, if all the priests will mobilize all the parishioners, that's a lot of warm bodies. Yung nag-participate sa Diocese Cubao na nagpunta sa September 21, that was only decided the Thursday before that Sunday. Pero ang dami po nagpunta. Dahil kami mga pare nagkasundo na as much as we can, we will bring as many parishioners as possible. I don't know, Bishop, siguro more than 5,000 march from the border of Caltex, just beside the 70th Avenue, the Mormon Church, to Edsa. So, ito po ang tapusin ko na lang dito. Let us strengthen the church coalition. Kasi kung hindi, tayo po nandoon, pero tayo po ay sasakyan, uupuan, dahil kailangan nila ang maraming tao. Kaya palagi lumalabas, hindi na cardinal sin. Because with one cardinal sin, napuno ang EDSA. Gusto na naman nila mapuno ang EDSA. At isa lang ang kaya magpapuno ng kwento ng EDSA. Si Pablo. So, bahala na po kayo. This is the input that I'm sharing with you. That does not come from my opinion, but from my experience. I was there in all those, from EDSA 1, EDSA 2, EDSA 3, at yung Manila Pen, siege Manila Pen, of November 29, 2007. Ngayon, military people are now talking. The time is right for another good enough. And the church can prevent it. And I think we should prevent it because it's not going to be good for everyone with the times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Robert. Mukhang time na talaga ng 1QC na pinag-uusapan ng mission partners at saka ng GPICC. So, who knows, after this forum, ikakasama natin yung 1QC.
1QC, 1 Cubao.
So, huwag na natin matagal siguro while ongoing ang Q&A, pwede nang iserve ng staff yung merienda para hindi na tatayo, dire-diretso na lang. So, the floor is now open for question and answer.
And also for our participants online, no? May mga kasama po tayo by online. Maybe they can type or write their question. Pwede ba, brother?
Sige.
So the floor is now open for your...
Just raise your hand po and pakilala po kayo and then address kung kanino niyo po gusto i-address yung ating tanong. Yes, sister.
I am Sister Bruni of the Pastorale Sisters. One simple question lang po na nare-relate ko din po sa mga tao. May magpupulong po ba? Sa mga, of all, narinig na natin ang dami-dami ang ganda yung sinasabi. Kailan ba lang sila papasok sa kulungan?
Sa akin, siguro, hintan na yan.
Yes, yes.
Dahil because I'm an ex-PPL just like Jude Lozada. Yes, siguro naman may mga magulo. And kaya nga po, yung pagkakatalaga as ombudsman, niya po yung Remulla, I think it's in one.
ganitong skandalo. Mas maraming rally, mas matataas na opisyal, mas ang daming kaguluhan doon. Sa pangalanan ng kay Maris B, nagpa siya na maging testigo para sa katotohanan. At siguro, babahagi ko na ano mangyayari para sa discernment input para sa lahat. Ang mangyayari po dito, sasampahan ng kaso yung mga rainbow dyan, o siguro dalawang ano po ba ang layunin ninyo, anong end goal ninyo sa mga pagkilos sa mga discernment na to? Ano layunin natin sa ganitong pagpupulong-pulong? Dapat po tanongin ninyo kung ano ang layunin ninyo. Kasi at least yung mga naimbitahan ako, yung mga iba-iba rin ng parokya at karamihan kanilang layunin daw ay dapat sila parusahan. Dapat siya makulong. Dapat siya may mabago yung pera. Ganun din po ba ang kalooban natin dito sa araw na ito?
Yes!
So, ibabahagi ko na lang po yung proseso ng pagpapakulong. Kasi yun pala layunin, hindi at least yung aking karanasan, ibahagi ko sa inyo. Doon po yun, kasi isa pa po alam niyo bakit ba ng jail sa Caprison? Marami na hindi nakakaalam, no? Ang jail po ay isang detention facility sa mga tao akusado ng isang krimen. Pagka ikaw ay nahatulan na, ililipat ka sa prison. Since katulad po nito, mga malalaking tao, senador, mga congressman, kahit usapan ng kaso yan, dadali lang yan dun sa jail. At dahil pala naman sila parang conviction, makakapagtrabaho pa po yan, may sahod pa rin po yan. Kung 2 milyon yung kada buwan, kung ilang milyon yung allowance sila, ibibigay pa rin po yan. Yung mga sasinag, nasa mga congressman, ganun din. At patuloy pa rin sila makakapagtrabaho. Habang dinidinig yung sinaupang kaso sa kanila. Ako lang po, mababahagi ko lang yung sarili kong karanasan. Ayokong magkakahaka ng iba. Sa akin po, 6 na taon yung pagdinig sa sandigan. At 5 taon, dahil ako ay naman, inakyat pa namin sa Korte Suprema, 5 taon pa. So, 11 taon kami. Yung pong mga akusado ng gobyerno, siguro po kasi, may nakaso na ba sa sandigan dito? Wala pa siguro, no? Sa sandigan po, parang ganito, sina Kiko, sina Patatlabi, no? Tatlo sila dyan. Dito sa kanan, dito yung prosecution, yung sa gobyerno. Dyan sa kaliwa, nandiyan yung akusado. Dahil na, ginawa kong testigo ng gobyerno, 3 kaso, nandito ako. Pagkatapos din yung kaso laban sa mga dating Pangulo, ewan ko natandaan niyo, kasi noon, inilipat lang ako sa kabila, akusado naman ako. Sa loob po ng 6 na taon, lahat ng alam namin, dokumento namin, lahat ng mga text namin, ito, nahulog lahat siya ito po yung original na feasibility study na ginawa namin, ng NBNCD, ng budget namin, 129 million for the pilot. Ito po naging kontrata na 329. Nagsasabihin naman sa'yo, speculation nyo lang yan. Siguro lang iba yung scope ng proyekto. So, ito po yung text sa akin, ng mga akusado. Ito yung text sa akin, nung nagbigay ng pera, binigay na yung $10 million, gano'n. Paano namin malalaman na yung text na yan? Baka kung kami-kanino gagawin yan. After 6 years po, ang nangyayari sa amin, nakita mo ba Luzada na inabot na tinanggap itong presidente ng asawa niya, ng tao na akusan niyo, yung pera? Hindi po. Hindi niyo nakita? Hindi po. Meron ba kayong sulat? Kahit kung hindi niyo nakita, baka patunay na magpapatunay na tinanggap nila yung pera yun, wala po. Absuelto itong mga insufficient evidence. Ito ba sinasabi ko sa inyo, sarili ko lang yung karanasan, hindi ko alam yung karanasan ng iba. Yung akin lang. Tapos kami naman magkapatid, sabi, napatunayan namin nagkasal kami magkapatid. Kasi inisip nila gumawa ng masama. So ganito ganyan maging halimbawa ngayon, ilalapit natin, may nagsabi sa Ingeniero, dinala ko 150 million doon sa resort niya. Eh, tatanong lang naman na doon sa korte, sa kanya mo ba inabot? Kay Senador? Hindi po. Sabi, ay mo lang yung pera yan. Ano lang naman yan eh. May patunay yan na si Senador tumanggap niyan. Nagdala po kami 1 bilyon sa bahay ni ganito. O, si Congressman ba tumanggap ng 1 bilyon ninyo? Hindi po. May ipapakita kang papel na tinanggap ni Congressman? Wala po. Insufficient evidence yan. Hindi ko po ako binabahagi ko lang sa sarili namin karanasan. Hindi ako mag-spekulasyon o haka-haka sa iba. Kung yung mga nakasabay ko, siyempre, alam na naman yung pagka may hearing, hindi lang naman yung kaso ko didingin, marami. Ang mga kasabay ko ron na SWAT, convicted, isang barangay captain, nagpatay ng barangay, ginamit niya yung buhangin na grenade sa ilong. Convicted siya. Kasi ginamit niya yung buhangin na hindi niya pinabid. Meron din ba isang mayor, isang mahirap na bayan sa Leyte. Nagpatayo yung welcome card, 200,000. Shoot din siya. Ang pinakamalupit na nakita ko ron, nakasabay ko, ito po, yung mga narinig ko mismo, isang principal, kumuha siya ng 5,000 sa PTA. 5,000. So yun siya. Ano na siya? Shoot siya, oo. Kasi 11 years siya, kasi principal nga siya, dapat siya nagpapalo. So yun na po ang ibibigay ng visa. No? At bilang discernment input sa inyo. Kung ano yun yung mapakulong itong mga to, sinasabi ko po sa inyo, makukulong yung whistleblower dyan. So maraming salamat po.
Salamat Sir Jim sa pagbabahagi ng iyong karanasan at patuloy na nakikitambay sa CLSP. Yun po bang mga mission partners natin, merong gustong i-share o tanong bago tayo magtapos?